I found that over the past couple weeks I haven't really been using my journal, which I personally think is kind of ironic considering last weekend I uploaded a video called Keeping Up With Your Bullet Journal, but okay. Hello again team, it's Jess or JashiiCorrin, and welcome back for my October plan with me. I'm really looking forward to October starting, 1 because it's my birthday, and 2 because it's the start of the holiday break. But before we get into the setup of that, as per usual, we're just going to have a look at how September's going. So as you'll remember from my last monthly plan with me, the theme for September was space. So things related to stars and rockets and planets and all of that kind of stuff. So we had my splash page, my monthly log, which I need to go and tick off a bunch of things on. I found that over the past couple weeks I haven't really been using my journal, which I personally think is kind of ironic considering last weekend I uploaded a video called Keeping Up With Your Bullet Journal, but okay. And I think as we flip through these pages, you'll see just how much I haven't really been using it at all. After the monthly log, we had my September bucket list and my mood tracker. In terms of my bucket list items, this one is actually finished, and I'll go colour that one in later, and this one's happening on Monday. For my mood tracker, I am a few days behind in filling this one out, but I know that that one's not going to take too long to fill in, so it probably still will get done. We also have my habits tracker and steps tracker. Again, not too laborious to fill these ones in, so I know they will get done before the end of the month. We also have my meal log, which I have kind of fallen off with filling in. Most of the meals I can remember from the last week, so this one will probably, hopefully, get filled in. Hopefully. After this, we have my social media schedule and money and health challenge pages. I've been kind of slack with keeping up with social media the past couple weeks, but it's not going to be too hard to look back and see which ones I did and didn't post. In terms of my challenges, the health challenge is about 7,000 steps a day, so that one I can just check in my Fitbit for. And the money challenge was having a home-packed lunch, so if I get my meal log filled out, that one shouldn't be too hard to fill in. The next one is my gratitude log, which... yeah. I don't really have any intention of coming back and filling this one in. It is a fair bit of writing to do all at once at the end of the month, so I think I'm going to have to accept that this one is not getting filled in. After this, we're just into my weekly pages, and I tried to keep up my colour theme for these because I really like the combination of the gold and blue. So first weekly, second weekly, and you can see both of these really did get used. Then we get to the third weekly, where certainly started to fall off. We have a page dedicated to my 16 personalities quiz results, and then after that we have my current weekly, which is the one that Vogel set up for me. Again, some things to tick off here too. On to October though, my theme for next month is breast cancer awareness. I've been planning on doing this theme for a couple of months now, but with the current motivation issues I'm having in my journal, the kind of grandiose and highly decorative plans that I had in my head for the month coming are not going to be what I'm setting up. Because of those motivation issues, I haven't filled in the aesthetic category on this page, because it just took me a really long time to figure out what I wanted my pages to look like. As I mentioned, I've had this theme planned for 2 months, and my original intentions for the setup were going to be a lot more decorative. But again, because of those motivation issues, I've decided to strip it back a bit and do something a little bit more simplistic, but something that's still hopefully equally pretty and functional. Before I get started, just a reminder that any of the equipment I use in today's setup is linked in the description box below. For our voiceover today, I figured I'd start by talking with you guys about why I decided to opt in for a breast cancer awareness theme rather than some of the other more typical themes you see at this time of year. One of the reasons would have to be using it as a way of celebrating or remembering the people in my life who have or are still battling with breast cancer. I know this would be similar for a lot of you guys. I think it's pretty hard these days to find someone who doesn't have a relative or a friend of a friend that's been affected by breast cancer. So I wanted to do something in my journal, even if it's only small, to show my support. The second reason is probably best described as FOMO, because I swear I always end up finishing my monthly pages, and then within an hour I'll be on Facebook and someone will have posted in one of the bullet journal groups saying how they're basing their theme for the month on a month-long observance, like Pride Month, or Black History Month, or Movember, or something else, and every single time I'm like, damn, I should have done that. The third reason is more of a why I'm not doing Halloween, and that's mostly because I've done it for the last 2 years in a row. In 2017, my decoration was pretty minimal, just some spider webs, and my doodle a day was related to all things Halloween. Last year, I went with a more witch-oriented kind of thing, with a fair bit more decoration. I used a whole bunch of Halloween doodles on my monthly log, and each page of my monthly setup was decorated with this spear-like motif that kind of made me think of like a special ritual-based magical item. I don't know, but I do like the way it turned out. I felt that the crowning jewel of that setup was certainly my potion bottle mood tracker. I feel it really turned out well, and I totally love it. For this year, I knew that a lot of other people would be doing Halloween or fall/autumn, but it's spring here, and I like to be different in general. Before starting today's video, you'll have seen that I lightly traced in the silhouette of the breast cancer pink ribbon. The idea for this cover page is that I'm going to have 2 colours of pin, black and pink, with the black going around the outside of the ribbon and of course the pink in the middle. Within each box on the page I'm putting 1 letter. I decided to do this to make sure that all the letters were evenly spaced, and it works out quite nicely because October has 7 letters, so I could fit it in evenly 4 times across the page of my Dingbats journal. To make sure that I didn't just have columns of each individual letter, on each subsequent row I shifted the word October over by 3 spaces. For the most part, this wasn't too much of a hassle, but as October has 2 O's in it, I did have a few instances where I started to spell out OCT, where I was supposed to be doing OBER. This didn't really bother me enough to warrant going back and fixing them though. As I've said a couple times before, often when we try and fix our mistakes in our journals, we can end up just drawing more attention to them compared to if we just left them alone. So it was around this point that I started to put the pink in. For the letters that were very much in the background and the letters in the center of the ribbon, it was easy enough to draw these in completely with the correct pen. For the letters on the border of the ribbon, however, I wanted to make sure that the parts of the letter inside the ribbon were pink and the parts outside the ribbon were black. Initially I tried to do this by stopping and starting whichever pen I was using when I got to the border, but eventually I realised that an easier way to do this was to write it all out in pink first, and then go over any parts that were outside of the ribbon in the black. This worked really well because the pink is light enough that it doesn't show up underneath the black, and it kept my letter forms looking a lot more consistent, rather than trying to draw half letters and fill in the rest afterwards. If you've ever done something similar before, I'm sure you know how difficult it is to stop a B when you're halfway through each curve, and still make it look non-deformed. Same goes with the R especially. By doing all of the letters that were even partially pink with a Stettler first, this meant that I just had to trace over the necessary parts with the black. Overall, I'm pretty dang pleased with how this cover turned out. I like that it's simple enough that it really doesn't take a lot of artistic talent. It's really just writing a bunch of letters with different coloured pens. But when it's finished, it looks really visually effective. Even if there are at least 2 instances where I put the wrong letters in. Of course, in this one I've just used the word October, but if you were doing one of these for yourself, you could make it like a proper word search or word find, by collecting a bunch of words related to the coming month or to your monthly theme. If you were doing that, my recommendation would be to put the actual words in first, and then fill the remaining space with random letters. This way you can make sure that you actually leave enough space for them. If, like me, you find it difficult to place things randomly, you could always use an online word search generator as well. This would place all of your words and random letters for you, so you just have to copy them into your journal. In doing that, you could make it so that it's like a proper word search where all of the letters are the same colour, or if you wanted to highlight the words you'd actually put in, you could put those in a different colour. Although, as I said, this cover was relatively simple to do, it was still time consuming. This page in particular took me about an hour to set up, which I do know some people would feel is excessive. Personally, I thought it was time well spent, so I'm not bothered. Once I'd finished all the pen work, I just erased the guiding lines and then it was on to my monthly log. Again for October, I've decided to go with the calendar style monthly. I can't remember if I mentioned this last month, but I've essentially decided that all of my monthly logs for this journal are going to be in that calendar style layout. I thought it would be kind of nice to have a consistent style for that spread in particular, and as I've said before, I really appreciate the amount of space it gives me. The first thing I did on this one was lay down washi tape borders. That's because for my monthly log, I'm going to be using my Distress Oxide inks. I used these previously in February to do the banners and borders of each spread, and I'm doing something similar this month as well. While in February, I did it so that the colour was outside of my calendar boxes. For October, I've decided to put the colour internally. Although my main colour for October is pink like the breast cancer ribbon, I didn't want to have flat pink boxes, so I also include some of the Spice Marmalade colour. I think that these two colours together would look really nice if you were doing a sunset-inspired theme. As you saw, I started by putting down the orange sections randomly, making sure to buff the edges using circular motions, and then did something similar with the pink to fill the remaining space and blend the colours together. The nice part about the Distress Oxide inks compared to the regular Distress inks is that the pigment sits on top of the page rather than soaking in. This means that unless you go really crazy with them, you don't end up with much, if any, ghosting and no bleed through. The oxide inks will also react with water, so as I did in February, you can spray or spatter a finished page with water to create some really cool effects. For October I decided not to do this, but it does look really cool when you do. Another perk about the pigment sitting on top of the paper is that it makes the colours a lot easier to blend. Although I don't necessarily do the greatest blending job here, it is really low fuss to get the colours to diffuse into each other, and you can easily overlap colours as I did to subdue the orange in some sections. Once all the colour was in, I then just pulled up the washi tape to reveal the nice crisp borders. I find this so satisfying, but if you're doing it yourself, do make sure that you pull your washi tape slowly and carefully because you do not want to rip your page. I found that the pages of the dingbats in particular are really susceptible to ripping when I'm pulling up washi tape, so this is certainly something to be mindful of. I then used my M-size Pit Artist pen to rule in the borders for all of my boxes. Technically speaking, I could have done this first, but I didn't want the oxide ink sitting on top of my lines and making them look less black. As you guys probably know by now, I love contrast, so the bright colour with the dark black lines really appealed to me. This is something I continued with for the other pages of my October setup as well. For the header for each day of the week, I wanted to incorporate more of the pink ribbon idea, so I put each day's initial in a ribbon style header. This header style was one of the first things I learned how to do when bullet journaling. The ones I put on this spread are really easy to recreate. I know that there are a lot of good step-by-step tutorials online for ribbon headers, but if this is something that you guys would like to see from me, let me know in the comments below and I could probably make a video on that one. I used a serif all caps font for the daily initials, and decided on fauxligraphy for the October title. Font choice was a real challenge for me in this setup. Going with that whole lack of motivation and dissatisfaction with my journal thing, I couldn't settle on just one lettering style for this setup. I wanted things that were easy to achieve and visually effective, and although I do try and keep my lettering consistent to tie my monthly pages together usually, for October this certainly did not happen. I find that one of the easiest ways to make sure that the pages in your monthly setup look coherent is by using the same colour palette on each and the same lettering style for your headers. For October, however, I ended up with something like 4 or 5 different lettering styles for my headers. Thankfully, I did keep my colour palette the same throughout, however, so I still think they look reasonably coherent. To fill the small triangles on my ribbon header and the downstrokes of my fauxligraphy title, I used the Tombow gel brush marker in the colour 803. Something I do completely forget to do in this setup is put in the numbers for each day of the month. I end up doing this off camera, but I only realised they were missing after I'd completely finished filming. To fill the space on the right hand page, I wanted to use a quote that was related to breast cancer, but still uplifting. I was tossing up between a few, but the two I liked the most were, "Courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes courage is the little voice at the end of the day that says I'll try again tomorrow." And the one I actually decided on was, "Supporting the fighters, admiring the survivors, honouring the taken, and never giving up hope." I couldn't quite fit the last line in, so I swapped giving up for losing, but I still think it keeps the message clear. In the top left corner, I just included a pink ribbon that says Kia kaha, which means be strong. Next we are on to my October bucket list and holiday to-do list. As you can see, I've already gone in and put the Distress Oxide ink along the top. I figured you guys saw how I did it for the monthly log, and I used the exact same process for this one too. To continue with that contrast that I love so much, I ran a 6mm black washi tape along the edge of the header. Initially, I was going to have my bucket list in 9 rectangles, just as I did for July and August, but I thought this was a good place to reincorporate the ribbon again. I first penciled out the edges of the winding ribbon, starting at the top left and ending in the bottom left of the page, and I then used my Pit Artist pen to draw the ribbon in. This gives me 8 spaces for my bucket list items. I know that one of them is going to be to celebrate my birthday, but I'm not too sure at this stage what the other things I want to include are. I'd be interested to know of any exciting events or goals that you guys have coming up in October though, and if you wanted to share them, please do drop them in the comments below. On the sections that would essentially be the underside of the ribbon, I coloured these in again with the Tombow. I kind of like having a difference in colour between the top and bottom sides of the ribbon, so I'm not too sure at this stage how I'm going to show when I've completed a task on my bucket list. For the headings on this spread, we can see my 3rd and 4th lettering styles after the all-caps serif and foligraphy from the monthly log. For this spread, I used a combination of regular cursive and an all-caps font. The nice part about these all-caps letters is that there's a large open section on each of them, which can easily be filled with a colour or a pattern. I decided to opt in for stripes for this one. The nice part about this open space and the way that you can fill it is that it makes the lettering style really easy to make your own, and also really easy to make it fit in with any monthly theme. Up next, we're on to my monthly trackers. Again, I've already put in the Distress Oxide inks and the washi tape. Along with not wanting to bore you guys to death watching the same repetitive process of laying the washi borders, putting down the coloured ink, and then replacing the dirty washi with the black, part of the reason I did these parts off camera was again due to the general difficulty I had with settling on layouts that I actually wanted for this setup. Now as it's all set up, I do really like what I've got, but getting there was a struggle. This spread is my habits and steps trackers for the month. I've really enjoyed the habit tracker style from September, so I wanted to do something similar for October. Not too sure at this stage what my habits are going to be, but I've left space for their icons at the top. For the steps tracker, I've taken this back to a simple bar graph. No fancy doodles or anything, it'll just be a coloured bar for each day to represent how many steps I ended up doing. As I normally do, I've also made sure to make the weekend days stand out by writing the initials for those using my Statler rather than my Pit Artist pen. For the headers on both of these pages, I just use that simple cursive font. If you hadn't already noticed, for October I've got all of my tracker pages on Dutch doors. I really wanted to incorporate Dutch doors into this layout, and I thought it would be an easy way to not have to do the decorative borders on every single page. To make the Dutch door, I cut 6 columns of dots off the vertical edge of 3 pages. If we think about it in terms of spreads, my trackers take up 4 spreads. So on the first one, on the left-hand page, this one's my habit tracker with the pink border running down the side, while on the right-hand page of that one, I have the 6 columns cut off. For the last of the 4 spreads, it's the left-hand page that has the cutoff, while the right-hand page again has that pink border. This means that you can see that colourful decoration regardless of which page you're on, and it also means that I only had to make 2 decorative borders rather than 8. Hopefully all of that made sense, and if it didn't, hopefully you can still see it in the video. If it wasn't already obvious, this spread is for my social media schedulers. A little different to usual, and back to being across 2 pages. Just as in October, I have more things than usual to keep track of. Again, for the headers on these ones, I opted in for that simple cursive font. Up next, we're onto my monthly challenges page. You may have noticed that anytime I set up this layout, I choose not to use a ruler, while on most of my other trackers I will always use one. That's mostly because having to rule this one up would take way longer than just freehanding it. Having to stop and start the pen so many times while holding a ruler in a consistent place really adds a lot of time. I also find that I can keep the lines straight enough for the small boxes that I use, and I don't mind too much if they wobble a little bit. Having said that, I do kinda wish that for the longer boxes on this one, I had have used a ruler, just as the longer edges on those are a little bit more wobbly than I'd like. Because of that, for the boxes on the right-hand page, I decided to rule the longer edge. For this page, I'm bringing back the 1 word a day idea. I really enjoyed using this last November and December. I'm pretty sure that's the last time I used them. So I thought I'd include that instead of the mood tracker for October. On this spread we have my meal log. I did toss up between including or not including this one, just as I haven't been keeping up with it very well this month. I've kept it in a similar format to normal though, but just with narrower columns because of the Dutch door and the decorative border. I'm hoping that this will still give me enough space to record all my meals, but also that I actually use it. I'm also thinking that I'm probably going to want to change the layout of this one up next month. So if you have any suggestions or links to any inspiration I can find, please do let me know. To make my meal log a little bit more decorative, and also to include more of my monthly theme, I decided to bring back the ribbons to make headers for each of the columns. These ones were a little bit trickier to draw compared to the ones on the monthly log, and I'm not 100% happy with how they turned out, but I still think they're kinda cute. I'd love to know though, what is your theme for October, if you have one? Are you going with Halloween, or autumn, or something completely different? I really love hearing about what you guys are doing in your journals, because I find them to be a really great source of inspiration. For a final flip through, we have my splash page, my monthly log, my bucket list and holiday to-do list, and then onto my tracking pages. So habits and steps tracker, social media scheduler, monthly challenge page and 1 word a day page, and my meal log. Thank you for watching, team. If you liked today's video, please do make sure to give it a big thumbs up. And if you wanted to see more from me, feel free to go check out one of my other videos. Until next time, bye!